Catch up with old friends, and I'm going to couch this relationship, and at any point, Marty McGee is going to break in and talk about it's been 32 years since you and I attended the Paul Simon Graceland Tour down at Merriweather Post Pavilion. They've remodeled it down there. It looks beautiful, Marty. But let me tell you what, man, all these years later, I still have to come to you for horse racing. Welcome home to Baltimore. My former Baltimore Sun colleague back in the day when we were both younger and better looking. Marty McGee's Daily Racing Foreman, DRF McGee. Oh, it's Preakness week, Marty. I left you alone Derby week. I didn't call you 2 weeks ago, so you got to stay twice as long this time, buddy.
All right. We'll see what we can do.
Well, justify. I mean, let's go. I mean, you're the gambling man here. Tell me how we're going to beat this horse on Saturday.
It's a two-horse race. It's him and Good Magic. I picked and bet on Good Magic in the Derby, and people who aren't familiar with the game of horse racing think, well, how's he going to beat him this time? Well, it happens every day at every track. The horses make up 2.5 lengths or whatever the official margin was in the Derby, and Chad Brown, the trainer of Good Magic, is very confident that his horse bounced out of the race well. You know, Good Magic's only had 3 starts this year as opposed to 4 or more that some of the other horses have, so he's relatively fresh. Chad Brown is not going to run Good Magic in the Belmont no matter what, or so he says. Maybe if he wins by 5 he would. But, it's quite plausible that that Good Magic can track Justify all the way and get past him this time.
Well, I think that's one of the hardest parts of winning the Triple Crown, not only if you have a special animal like American Pharoah or any of the, Smarty Joneses, Funny Sides, Big Browns that came before that didn't get it done. It's that no one really runs all 3, right? I mean, literally, you say, okay, I'm going to do this one or that one, not this one and that one. It would take a special horse, a special owner, and certainly a special trainer to say, I want to take that on, especially if I'm not winning these races, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, when you and I were going to the Merriweather Post Pavilion and attending concerts 32 years ago, it was a different ballgame because trainers didn't mind running far more often than they do now. So they kind of cherry pick their spots with the 5 weeks comprising the entire Triple Crown. For instance, Todd Pletcher, if he doesn't win the Derby, he rarely, if ever, comes to the Preakness with a Derby horse. He had Audible run a real big third. He almost got second from Good Magic, and he would be a logical candidate to run back in the Preakness. But no, that's not Todd's style to come back in 2 weeks unless he's compelled to do so, as I said, with a Derby winner. So he is laying in wait as we speak at Belmont Park to try and ambush whoever comes out of this race. And so you would just think that he's at an advantage being able to use that strategy as opposed to the Baffert and particularly Baffert this time with Justify. He has to run if he wants to win the Triple Crown in the Preakness and then in the Belmont.
Well, Marty, nobody would be compelled to come back and run in 2 weeks, would they? I mean, in normal circumstances, if it weren't for this.
Exactly. I mean, that's why they've talked ad infinitum about, well, it's the topics every year, Nestor. It's one, is the Preakness going to move from Pimlico? And 2, why don't we space these races out more to be more accommodating to the modern horseman? So those are topics we hit on, it seems like, every year.
Will either one of those ever happen? Because we've only been talking about it since you and I have met in 1986, probably, right?
Well, I mean, how much money would it take to? Aren't they waiting on a study from the Maryland Festival or the Maryland? What do they call it? Stadium Authority,
yeah. Look, I was down at Laurel, and this is bigger picture. And look, I had Dick Girardi on earlier, and and everybody I talked to about wagering this week. The whole world changed on Monday, right? Like for everything, and for every state, for every sport. I mean, Mark Cuban's crowing about every professional sports owner doubled their franchise money. So from a sports perspective, that's going to happen. Horse racing's been doing this online for a long, long time, right?
Yeah, we have been, and the Daily Racing Form was bought last year by a company out of the Chicago area that was intent on this happening. So I would expect that Daily Racing Form and DRF Bets will be ahead of the curve in terms of offering sports betting in states where it becomes permissible.
Well, it's already set up. I mean, you're already there. You're not, in some lair in Costa Rica somewhere. And that's horse racing's edge probably on this, is having done it and made money. And there already is an industry there that exists. But I went down to Laurel 2 weeks ago for when you were soaked down there in Louisville at the Derby with my wife. We had the hat on and all that, and they've done an unbelievable job of renovating Laurel. Everyone believes they're going to move the race at some point down there, but either way, the track becomes this very viable sports palace all of a sudden, in the same way that it looked like Vegas, it felt like Vegas, now it can be Vegas.
Well, I mean, they're going to have a hard time prying it from the cold, dead hands of the city of Baltimore. I know that. That's one hurdle. I think what Laurel is endeavoring to do, Nestor, is prove that they are a big race venue, and in that, I believe that the Breeders' Cup at some point, maybe 2021, something around there, maybe a little bit later, is going to offer the Breeders' Cup to Laurel. Now, they're going to have to prove that they can. It's going to be a whole new thing because, of course, you have the Pimlico infield that has become a revelry site for so many people for so many years, and they don't have that at Laurel. It's just a different setup there. So they're going to have to show one, that they can handle something as big as the Breeders' Cup, and then two. And by the way, the Breeders' Cup has limited their crowd numbers to, like last year at Del Mar, it was 38,000. It's been limited at other venues. So, I mean, how many people would they permit to go to the Preakness? Would they limit the attendance to, say, 60 or 80,000, where we're used to 110 plus? So there's a lot of hard answers in those questions I'm posing there.
Well, I mean, if they were easy, it would have been done 20 years ago, right? I mean, we've been identifying these problems forever and ever and ever. And one of the problems is the horse racing industry going to be here? Is it going to matter? And you remember when the purses, got so low that no one was here anymore. And it's certainly, Kevin Plank tried to breathe some energy into this. And certainly, Stronach and Magna and all of that encompassed all this. But I think the horse racing industry comes into this in pretty good shape. And I've been doing this for 27 years, and that hasn't always been the tone of our conversation, right?
Absolutely. I mean, they've done a fabulous job there at the Maryland Jockey Club. So they've got some leverage and some credibility in the way that they've operated over the last, 10, 12, 15 years.
Well, they want it here, right? I mean, there was a feeling there. Everything was like, we're going to bury Maryland and move out. Well, that hasn't happened, and the gambling came, and the casinos have come, and now the federal government has come. I feel pretty confident that 10 years from now, the Preakness won't be running at Gulfstream or at Santa Anita.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, if it's going to move anywhere, it would be Laurel. So, and again, that's the efforts that are being made by the Stronach team.
All right, let's talk about the race itself and where you're going to go with, trying to beat Good Magic on an exacta or on a triple or whatnot. The rest of this field, I mean, there's a point where they probably don't belong, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, on Tuesday, they were talking about 8 horses going with maybe a 9th, a horse from Dale Romans called King Zachary, but that was an if. The entries were to be drawn on Wednesday evening at the track. To me, it looks like a cold exacta. I mean, the exacta for Justify over Good Magic, that might pay, $8 for a deuce, and the other way might pay $12 for a deuce. I'm going Good Magic over Justify. I'm going to try and hit either a triple or a superfecta. My main sleeper in that sequence after the top 2 is going to be Lone Sailor, who ran a pretty good race in the Kentucky Derby off a good effort in the Louisiana Derby. So I think he's going to be in the 20-1 range. As a lot of Keith Fusel, the odds maker, said nobody's going to be less than 10-1 on the morning line. So beyond the top 2, you've got long shots. My long shot to come in after those 2 is Lone Sailor for Tom Amos and Irad Ortiz.
For racing around here, when you come in here this week, Baffert's been so good at this race specifically, but also brings the statesmanship with him, right? And brings, someone called him an ambassador for racing. I'm thinking he's the ambassador. I don't know who second place is. No offense to D. Wayne, who he's chasing this week with Triple Crown victories. But, you think of racing, you think of Bob, and the horses don't talk, and some of the jockeys' English is better than others, and some have had, longer track records than a guy like Mike Smith, the that's been doing it a long time. The future of racing and where it is, where are the stars? Where are the next group of stars for racing?
Well, we've got some of the jockeys, the young jockeys, Irad Ortiz and his brother Jose Ortiz. Jose Ortiz is the jockey for Good Magic. You've got a guy like Todd Fletcher, who's quite the statesman now. Chad Brown, the trainer of Good Magic, he's a real up-and-comer. He has won the Eclipse Awards the last 2 years. There's a lot of fine young people in the game, men and women. And I think this game is as vibrant as it's ever been. I think social media has helped a lot. And, I feel real good about the future of racing in Maryland and here in Kentucky and elsewhere.
I was down at Laurel. We were, mainly dry. It wasn't a perfect day here, but it was a nice enough day. And we got down there about 1:30. We looked up on the television screen and saw I never checked the weather in Louisville because I wasn't going to Louisville that weekend. That's, just for a day, I was like, this is the one year we skipped the Derby, and I was happy to do that. It kind of affects the mood down there, doesn't it? I mean, it's not going to be good here this week. I mean, certainly the track's going to be wet all week long around here, but on Derby Day, that was really a mess.
Yeah, they said it was the first time in 144 runnings that it actually was raining during the race. We've had sloppy tracks, I don't know, maybe 30 or 50 I don't know how many times, but never, according to the records, was it raining during the race. And it rained for 14 straight hours in Louisville that day. And my two daughters, who are now 23 and 20, they were pretty miserable. We had to wear ponchos and everything else. So, it's so much better when the weather's nice, and I've got my fingers crossed for Saturday. Maybe it'll relent, and we can all have a decent day out in the elements. Do you have any predictions on the gambling side of what Monday is going to do? I mean, you're a guy that's been gambling, been involved in gambling, and there's no shame in that on the horse racing side. But if you're involved in football gambling or basketball gambling, it's always been thought to be a little seedy, a little dirty, a little down in the basement, Vinny in the back room, and, and the offshore stuff and all of that stuff. Racing was always the place where you went and you bet on the horses, and sometimes some illicit stuff happened, and sometimes a little bit of this or a little bit of that, and it was thought to be that, like boxing maybe sort of kind of. But this is all like been brought into the light now, right? And when you have the Mark Cubans and the Ted Leonsis and the owners talking about making money off it, we had all that Reality Kings and all that NFL stuff that sort of came and went in 15 minutes a couple of seasons ago. This is about to change, right? And for what horse racing has represented for the legitimacy of sports wagering for all of our lifetime, that Pandora's box got opened by the Supreme Court on Monday. Absolutely. And, I think it's for the good. It has been out in the open for quite a while. I think, again, social media has played a key role in bringing it out into the light. People talk about it openly. You will never eliminate the chances of a player taking money or some corruption being involved, but that was already in place, Nestor, with the way it was. So, it's kind of like marijuana. I mean, it's just these states. There's a handful of states now that are capitalizing on what has been just a vice or whatever you want to call it. Something a lot of people, a large percentage of people are doing illegally, and the state's not making any money off of it. And, exactly. So I say yes. I mean, this is great. I mean, I don't feel bad about myself for having gambled, my entire life. It's, it's just, it makes things fun. It makes sports fun. I don't like to go to a game and not bet on it because it doesn't hold the same kind of interest to me. Well, and I would say once you get older, unless you're flying the laundry as I'm wearing my UMBC swag and my Caps hat, unless you really love the team, and I'm not a gambler. I didn't grow up in a gambling household. I'm a $2 horse racing guy and a $10 blackjack guy when I'm in Vegas or at the casino or whatnot. But certainly my whole industry over 27 years of doing sports radio, the Friday picks and all of that stuff, it always did feel like it was in the shade over in the corner somewhere. The leagues are not going to be shy about this. What's it going to mean for horse racing? Do you think that's good or bad for horse racing? I think we're going to piggyback. I think it's going to improve us. It's not going to hurt us, I don't think. And, again, my company, the Racing Forum, we are positioned and have been to go ahead and try and capitalize as quickly as possible in whatever states where it becomes legal. So I think that's been an idea for a number of wagering outlets. The one thing it doesn't really change, I know a guy who's a bookmaker in Louisville, and he said, look, on these sites that have existed and the ones that will become legal now, you don't get credit. You have to put up the money first. And the bookies still have that edge. They can give credit to their customers. And I don't know if it's going to be as successful in terms of gross wagering dollars as people might think, because I don't know if people really have the money to put up to begin with, honestly.
Well, the other part of that is, all the sites can offer different sort of, 3, 3.5, or 4, give you more action, give you more points, make you think about it a different way. All of those type of things, getting maybe a little bit more out on the edge than just a straight line, because a straight line, you can be able to gamble everywhere, right? I mean, it's like weed shops in Denver. They're on every corner. I'm assuming that's going to kind of be the way the internet's going to be. Gamble here, gamble there, and there's going to be like the video, stores that popped up. Blockbuster sort of won for a while, right? But in the early days, it's going to kind of be everywhere, right?
Yeah, I would be surprised if there aren't some cutthroat kind of competitors amongst these gambling outlets, because the standard right now is the 10%. If you lose 10%. So if you put them together, that's 5%. I would imagine, I don't know this, and I'm not an expert on this, but I would imagine that some things would say, hey, the VIG is only 8% or 7.5% or whatever, and I'm sure there will be. It's overall, it's going to be good for the customers. If you have the money to put up, and you want to play, it's going to be fun.
Well, yeah, what I say, when banks compete, you win, right? I mean, I guess it would be the same thing when bookies compete, you win.
Yeah, or maybe I'm sure there's all kinds of things they could do with it. Vegas has existed for a long time. You've been out there, and it's like for me, it was like a playground. It was just fun to go out there and take in a Sunday afternoon of football, or it was Sunday morning out there. But, it was just fun to do it, and, I'm glad to see this. I really am.
Well, when I was down in Laurel 2 weeks ago, not only is it beautiful and they sunk all the money into it, but it is Vegas. You look up and, there's Monmouth there and there's Churchill there, and, you can bet on anywhere, kind of like when I'm in Vegas where I look up, I see 14 tracks all running, right?
Yeah, 14 tracks, and then, 30 games or whatever you get if you got basketball, football, and hockey all going on. So, yeah, it's a guy like Mark Cuban, who's, one of the guys at the forefront of this, for it, he's no dummy, and he's not amoral, or he's, whatever kind of stigma you want to assign to it, I think at some point that needs to go away, because that's just real life, Nestor.
Well, it's certainly real life in Europe where, you go back on a soccer pitch and make the bet right behind, the same way, I'll be betting on Justify on Saturday at Preakness, right?
Yeah, except I'm not betting on that's why God invented the mutual windows, so we could go against each other. I'm going to bet a cold exactly good magic over Justify, and then, like I said, sprinkle some Lone Sailor underneath and some supers and tries.
All right, well, here we go. Marty McGee coming up. What do you love about coming back to Baltimore? I mean, how long did you live here? You weren't here. Like, I always think of you as a Baltimore son, venerable. You're only here a handful of years, right? I mean, we got to know each other in the 80s. You've been gone a long, long time from here.
I was there 7 years. I lived there early 85 to early 92, and I lived in Columbia most of those years. And really enjoyed writing for the Sun. And then I went to the Forum in May of 92. So it's been 26 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What do you love about coming back?
Oh, man, I OD on crab so bad. It's just, I'm going to get a crab cake. We're speaking on Tuesday. I'm going to get a crab cake when I fly in.
Well, I got I got the best sponsors here for crabs and crab cakes. Toss me a note. Let me know where you're going to be. We might be out at Michael's Cafe watching Game 5 of the Caps on Saturday after the Preakness, if there is a Game 5. I don't want to get all cocky and be talking brooms and sweeps here. I mean, I'm a Caps fan. I've been through all kinds of hell. I was kind of back when you used to talk about Triple Crown winners every single year, and you're thinking it just might never happen. And then America American Pharaoh happens, right? So
Right. Yeah.
maybe this is our American Pharaoh year.
By the way, I got 3-1 on the Caps winning the Stanley Cup, so that was on an online site. So there you go.
So I will be drinking Tom Ebright champagne from the Baltimore Skipjacks out of the Stanley Cup with Barry Trotz, and you're going to be cashing a 3-1 ticket. Well, at least we're both going to feel like winners, Marty.
All right, buddy.
Love you, Marty McGee. There he goes, DRF Marty McGee, the way to find him out on Twitter. And by the way, a little side now that I've gotten rid of Marty. Marty got in his car in Lexington, Kentucky, and drove up to Cincinnati with me 3 years ago. And we had one of the more memorable nights of swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry in a town that Earl Weaver called Cincinnati. And there are some great pictures of Marty McGee and I eating those cheesy dogs with the chili and all that stuff in the upper deck. I'm wearing my Free Pete Rose shirt. And we had a beautiful night in Cincinnati. So namaste and good vibes. And that was a red night, too, while I'm wearing my Rock the Red hat here. Marty McGee, Daily Racing Form, DRF McGee, the Kentucky correspondent for the Daily Racing Form, and one of my dear, dear friends. And no one knows more about the game than Marty McGee. So follow him out on Twitter if you love horse racing. And he'll be at Pimlico. We're all going to be at Pimlico. All of our coverage here this week brought to you by our friends at Howard Bank. A relentless commitment to being the best at everything they do. Branches throughout Baltimore and Maryland. They sponsor our Be More Positive Community and Charity Series on Thursdays, along with our friends at Cole Roofing. I've been drinking all my Royal Farms Kona blend out of the Cole Roofing mug here. Cole Roofing and Pfister Energy, they do corporate and commercial roof spaces. And, very easy to find them at ColeRoofing.com. Learn more about what they do. Bill Cole will be joining me with stories of Preakness' past later on in the week. The BuyAToyota.com Audio Vault is there for you 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. No static at all, just like Steely Dan and FM, which, by the way, Steely Dan is playing the Model Lyric, one of our partners, on October 11th. That is my 50th birthday week, so make sure you go out to Model-Lyric.com to learn more about that. And William Shatner there this week on Wednesday night, as well as down the line, we're going to be doing some more stuff. Kansas, the band, going to be joining us. David Ragsdale, the violinist from Dust in the Wind and Carry On, My Wayward Son, and all that stuff, going to be joining us later this week as we do some music interviews here as well. Some non-sports. I had Lewis Black on this week. You can check that out in the BuyAToyota.com Audio Vault as well. Our morning newspaper ships directly to your email inbox each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness at PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life, guaranteed. Also brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Jockey Club, because the Pimlico entries are in the morning newspaper each and every morning, as well as out on the front of WNST.net as we get ready for the Black Eyed Susan on Friday and the Pink Festival and the Preakness on Saturday, and hope that the rain stays away and goes away as we get ready for 143 of the Preakness this week. My cup runneth over. Full Caps coverage all week with Ed Frankovic and I out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me for the Ray Lewis trip for Canton. Maybe your first chance to see Lamar Jackson, probably, out in Canton, Ohio that night at the Hall of Fame game. We got a big weekend. We got the Indians. We got the Pirates. Speaking of baseball games, 2 baseball games, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, as well as the Pro Football Hall of Fame and Ray Lewis. All that on sale, as well as my 50th birthday celebration in Nashville. That's almost sold out now. You want to check out the Road Trips tab at WNST.net for that, as well as our trip to Carolina. In my mind, I'm going to Carolina. I am Nasty at WNST.net. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.